Okay, so this isn't going to be your usual formal gauge the issue with irrelevant pop culture cutaways, because given how worn out I'm feeling over what I'm about to tell you, I just don't have the energy to joke about it, and I don't fancy editing this in a way that makes me look as if I'm joking about it. I've been on YouTube for 13 years now, and in recent months I've been reflecting on that. A lot. But during that reflection, something's happened to me which has made me seriously reconsider what I should publish on my channel in the future. Those of you who know me would realise that I post new content on YouTube every month as part of my work as a freelance filmmaker with a lifelong passion for steam locomotives and, through relation, rail-related issues and media. I try to put up a new video, be it new episodes of Steam Locos in Profile or Soul Slip or Gauge the Issue every 2 weeks or so. Sometimes I even upload new content every week. With Steam Locos in Profile, arguably the show that people know me the most for, I try to keep the 4 latest episodes free for everybody to watch. Then when a new episode goes up, the oldest one gets taken down and sold either as a digital download or on a compilation DVD at the end of each year. My work ethic is a combination of desire to keep you guys entertained and the necessity to keep myself active while inconveniencing as few people as possible. Hence I try to do as much work myself as I can. I know that sounds like I'm rejecting help, but I learned even before I started that I know my own high standards. I have tremendous difficulty translating those standards into words, and I'm very picky over what I use. Hence, I'm not comfortable with taking other people's footage. I'm not comfortable when someone offers to film an episode of Slips for me, because then it's just not Slips and I shouldn't have my name attached to someone else's efforts. And I'd rather go without the additional stress of remembering what I owe to who. I have 2 amazing full-time cameramen who help me out with extra bits and bobs as well as graphic design and so on, and they're both amazing, so thanks a lot, lads. But I'd rather keep my crew small because it's just easier to do as much myself as I can. Also, the film and television industry is what it is, and the freelance lifestyle is what it is. So unless you're full-timing in Hollywood, the living is hardly lucrative. As you can imagine, I don't get much time off. Not because I don't want it, but because I don't usually have much choice. Railways are, at best, unpredictable. You just can't guarantee that an engine you've arranged to film on a particular day is going to be on the front of the train you're about to film until said engine actually turns up on the front of that train. With steam engines, or any other form of rolling stock operating on certification over time, once you miss a few operating days, those operating days are gone, and it could be weeks, months, sometimes even years before more of those operating days come along. Hence I have to shoot what I can when I can, with little to no time off. It's just not possible to ask someone like West Coast to extend the boiler ticket of one of their jubilees by a couple of weeks so I can get some time off and then come back to it when I'm ready. That's just not how it works. Anyway, on to the cause of my recent distress and why I'm reconsidering YouTube in the future. Back in November, one of my camera crew stumbled across a Facebook page pretending to be the Isle of Wight Steam Railway, which had pirated numerous videos, including 2 episodes of Slips they'd downloaded from YouTube during their free stint, those being the USA Tanks and the Ginties. It was easy to work out they'd been downloaded during their free stint because whoever downloaded them didn't even bother to take out the DVD adverts at the beginning. Initially I was led to believe the page was run by some East Asian bot, as one of the videos showed it had been uploaded from Sandankam, Malaysia. But after doing some digging, one of my friends pointed out that it was being run by a guy called Grant Sansom, who apparently has a history of spamming Facebook groups with unnecessary or pirated material. I looked up his name and sure enough, his interest in USAs and Ginties checked out, as it was the subject of other content attached to his name. I believed the Malaysian upload location at first, but cross-referencing it with other videos on his page, some of which were segments taken from old Castle Video VHS tapes, it seems more likely that Sandankam was Grant Sansom's way of disguising Sandown, which is on the Isle of Wight, the same Isle of Wight that his page was pretending to be, and the same Isle of Wight that other videos he'd pirated had been uploaded from. This isn't the first time I've had to fight piracy. Since early 2015, I've had videos copied from my channel and placed on other people's outlets without my permission. I've always fought these cases, and every time they've been taken down. But the worrying thing in this case was that I reported both of these pirated videos to Facebook while submitting screenshots showing upload dates from both the pirated and original videos, plus links to the original videos, which I privately keep on YouTube in case events like these come up and I need to prove when the original video was uploaded. But Facebook responded with a typical automated response which said, Based on the information you have provided and the context of the reported content, it is not clear to us that the reported content infringes your intellectual property rights. Specifically, we don't understand the basis for your assertion that you own the copyright in the reported content, or are otherwise in a position to submit this report. For this reason, we are unable to act on your report at this time. So Facebook wouldn't recognize me as the owner of my own work, despite submission of evidence that I am the owner of my own work, and have been for years before some random guy decided to just help himself to it. This demonstrates the idiocy of how social media has been set up. Both Facebook and YouTube are run on automation in such a way that creators aren't respected enough. Our work just isn't safe from people who are either ignorant of copyright infringement or simply like to abuse the system so they can have something for nothing, while those who make such content are put in a position to go without against their will. For weeks afterwards, I kept trying with Facebook and got nowhere. Fans have reported the page to Facebook as a fake one, but Facebook has just ignored all of them. Eventually I had to reach out to one of Grant's relatives, who was extremely kind and apologetic about everything for the record, and eventually one pirated video was taken down, but not the other for some reason, which I'm still asking about at the time of recording this. Grant's relative informed me that Grant himself is autistic and doesn't understand how appropriating someone else's video works. The thing is though, much as I respect that, I'm not sure it's much of an excuse. The autism spectrum demonstrates that some cases are more severe than others, but it shouldn't really excuse anybody from piracy. I'm on the spectrum myself, and I know a lot of other people on it too, but none of them would commit such an act of piracy. Such defense can kind of give autism a bad name. I know that the vast majority of people who regularly tune into my work are unable to buy nice things for themselves, so DVDs and downloads may be out of the question, including those of you who are overseas. I do deliver worldwide, and I try to keep shipping prices as low as I can so that you guys don't have to pay too much for it, but I appreciate that it still takes ages for anything to reach overseas. So I get that, which is why I've always tried to keep new episodes available for everybody to see to begin with. Then if people really like what they've seen, they have the option of buying their own copy in the future should they choose to, just like if something's shown on television and is later available on DVD or as a download. But with people like Grant Sansom taking what they want without respect to my copyright and YouTube's terms of service, or without respect to anybody who doesn't pirate my work and buys the DVDs and downloads, it makes me think that this practice may be too dangerous to continue. Now, I'm not trying to encourage cyberbullying towards Grant Sansom by calling him out, that's just not like me. But I think it's important to acknowledge him so that the rest of you can keep your eyes peeled should any of your content appear in his name in the future. Better to be safe than sorry. Things like this add to some of the stress that I incur from general online spite. I'm normally pretty good at brushing things off. Hell, you have to brush things off if you're going to work on the internet because it's such a god-awful place. But once in a while, someone says something that makes you question why the hell you bother. One thing that particularly irked me came up last year from the Narrow Gauge Enthusiasts group on Facebook. When a friend of mine was promoting a talk night I was hosting at the Wells and Walsingham Light Railway in Norfolk, discussion came up about my work being objectionable, to which one of the group's admin, who I'm not going to name for the sake of moral high ground, said, "I don't think he has to actually review to cause irritation, more being cited in the distance. It is alleged." At the time, I thought it was kind of funny that someone took that kind of offense to me, but I was at least curious about why he had problems with me, because he was a bit cryptic about it. So I asked him what his issues were, but he wouldn't answer me. It kind of shows just how rude and even cowardly some people can be. I wouldn't mind so much, but the person in question had association with both the Festiniog and Tallaght railways, and his comment was liked by other people who have worked for said railways. So for some reason, I felt really discouraged to visit or support both railways ever since. Now don't get me wrong, I generally hold nothing against the Festiniog or Tallaght railways as a whole. I've known and spoken to the odd person here and there from both of those lines over the years, and they've been perfectly decent people. And to be honest, to hold any kind of long-term grudge against someone or somewhere over something like that is just pretty counterproductive and, dare I say it, even slightly childish at times. I shouldn't think any railway would completely 100% ban anybody just for filming one of their engines from the line side, unless they trespass or do some sort of financial or liable harm to them, which I've no intention of doing for the record. But sometimes all it takes is one person to make you feel unwelcome somewhere. Subsequently, I've always had anxiety about going back to either place for filming purposes, so unless something changes, don't expect any Double Fairley or Fletcher Jennings slips anytime soon. I'm not saying that I expect any kind of red carpet VIP treatment or anything stupid like that everywhere I go. I'm not that famous or important at the end of the day, and the last thing I need is any kind of ego fuel because that's just not healthy. I've seen what happens to YouTubers who let fame go to their head, and it just gets messy. I'm just an ordinary guy who's lucky to have anybody like what he does. But when one supposed authority figure takes a pop at you without even being provoked, it can really set your anxiety off. It almost goes in line with remarks bad-mouthing some of my YouTube railway contemporaries like Laurie Rose and Jeff Marshall, people who I might not follow religiously, but I do at least respect and admire for what they do. Such comments read things like, "We shouldn't be paying for their hobby," and "Those YouTubers need to stop slacking off and get a real job." Well, to those haters, I can only quote what YouTube gaming critic Jim Sterling has to say on the matter. Unless you are 100% self-employed, unless you own a company that is beholden to nobody, that needs no investors, no employees, no business, no customers, you don't get to tell off anybody for having their livelihood tied to something else. Maybe you work at Walmart, maybe you work at Citibank. If you work for a company, guess what? Your livelihood is in the hands of a corporation. It's really not that different from someone who's relying on YouTube. People rely on a lot of different entities to make their money. And the same goes to those people who are like, well, those YouTubers should get a real job. No, if you're making money from doing work, you've got a real fucking job. I started Steam Locos in Profile, Soul Slip, The Train Now Starring, and Gauge the Issue, wanting to provide different railway content for rail fans everywhere, content that mainstream television refuses to make. There was no initial financial incentive. I wasn't in it just for the money, as some people have accused me of in the past. If I were in a job just for the money, I would have taken up something else and never gone anywhere near filmmaking, or the rail industry for that matter. Even so, as I've gotten older, I've had to take cost covering and saving for my future very seriously. When I started producing my work, I thought that enough people would be interested in sharing it around for it to pay for itself on YouTube alone, but that just wasn't the case. Those who shared it weren't sharing enough for it to go viral, and YouTube's ad revenue is pitiful. It contributes at best around 10% of my monthly income. So if Slips were to continue beyond the first few episodes, because I just didn't have the heart to end it when it started becoming popular, it had to survive on DVD and download, and I still have to do a lot of other work on the side just to keep myself solvent and allow me to justify making more. I do a lot of corporate work and sound recording and editing jobs on the side, hence a lot of sound recording for Caledonia Works and Digital Traction since 2017 in the train sim scene. But even so, I usually have to go without luxuries that most other people would take for granted. When I have to choose between £10 worth of petrol and £10 worth of food when I'm out and about shooting, 99 times out of 100 I have to choose the petrol and go hungry, because that'll get me another 60 miles or so. Enough for me to get that little bit further during another shoot. If I book far enough in advance, £10 even gets me a return from London to Kidderminster by rail, which allows a return trip to the Severn Valley Railway should I need to do any filming there. And £10 worth of drinks with friends? Forget it. But rest assured, to anyone who thinks I'm just looking for free drinks, just don't worry about it, I'll be fine. I can actually survive pretty well without alcohol. But again, if people are just willing to take what they fancy when they fancy, then that kind of makes things a little more difficult. And before anybody says that I should do some part-time work on the side, I've been there and done that, but it just ended up getting me signed off with stress. Work as a freelance filmmaker and working part-time in retail, customer service, and even manufacturing gave me very little time to sleep, less so than I do already. I've been making films professionally for 8 years, and the longer I'm in this profession, the less safe and relaxed I feel about YouTube. I've seen channels taken down over things beyond creators' control, livelihoods and hobbies destroyed by automated systems who just don't recognize who owns what and what rights they have. In 2016, Simon Poole had one such traumatic ordeal whereby someone took his content, re-uploaded it elsewhere, and then abused YouTube's copyright strike system to have Simon's channel deleted from YouTube. The worst part was that YouTube clearly didn't recognize Simon as the owner of his own work, despite his name being attached to it and him uploading content for years before this happened. Otherwise, whoever took his content would have been penalized instead, but the guy who took from him seemed to get away without consequence. If this happened in the outside world, like in the cinema or in a shop or somewhere that you actually have to pay money to see stuff, then the thief would be arrested and charged. But no, this is the internet, so thieves are free to do what they want without consequence. This is becoming the bane of my existence, the fact that social media is run on automation and doesn't help the innocent guy when they're down. If it can happen to someone like Simon Poole, then it can happen to anybody on YouTube. I've had people condescendingly say to me, "Use Patreon," as the answer to my prayers. But as I've expressed elsewhere, unless your subscriber base is big enough, as in the hundreds of thousands region, then Patreon just isn't a supportive alternative. It might work for Jim Sterling, who at the time of this video going public has nearly 900,000 subs and is supported by less than 8,000 of these, so less than 1% of his subscriber base, but my subscriber base is barely in the tens of thousands despite starting on YouTube less than half a year behind him. Besides, even if Patreon was a viable alternative, it doesn't stop piracy. It doesn't make you immune to it, neither does Vimeo or Dailymotion or any other streaming site, come to think of it. In an ideal world, I would keep posting new episodes of Slips on YouTube to begin with, seeing as that's what people like to see the most and it reaches the most number of rail fans. People have been coming up to me and thanked me for my work, saying that it changed them into better people. They came to me for escapism from all of the shit they're going through in life, that they've gone into the rail industry or become firmly established at their local heritage railway as a result of what I've done. And I'm honestly really happy that I've somehow managed to help all those people. Even though I will say that to those people in question who might be watching this, you are your own heroes and you're awesome, so don't ever stop. In principle, making Slips for YouTube is what I set out to do, and that's what I'd like to stick by, specifically for such amazing people who have been influenced by it somehow. But in reality, when the internet has tried to introduce all sorts of new and unfair laws like SOPA, Article 13 and now COPPA, and when people like Grant Sansom just help themselves to what they want without YouTube or Facebook honouring owners' rights, I just don't know. But just to reassure those who are worried about my subsequent mental health because of this saga, I'm fine. I haven't lost a ton of sleep or had constant panic attacks, but the first couple of mornings were pretty shaky when I found out about it, and I'm generally a very anxious person by nature. But on the whole, I'm a lucky and grateful survivor. I've had tons of people support me over the years through worse situations than this, so to all of those people, thank you. I've always said that it's my fans who've made this venture a success, and you really have, so don't ever stop being awesome. But to those who are watching this thinking that they can keep getting away with pirating my work, I hope you're happy with causing me to rethink everything and potentially ruining it for everybody. I just hope there's some kind of solution to this problem in the long run, because if this is just going to keep happening, 2020 may be it for Slips on YouTube. Put simply, if everybody would like Steam Locos in profile to remain on YouTube before it goes out on some form of paid media, then please keep your eyes peeled for anybody who pirates it, and please let me know about it as soon as possible. Because if anybody does pirate it again, they'll be responsible for the day I decide not to publish new episodes on YouTube. Not me. I'm Chris, and thank you for letting me get this off my chest, because I'm now run down and really, really tired.